Two recent stories published in Europe reveal that leaders of countries participating in the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership (TTIP) are secretly enforcing the agreement's provisions and approving backroom deals with powerful multinational corporations whose interests are served by the secret arrangements. What's worse, it seems that Agenda 21 is lurking in the latest version of the agreement. On October 17, The Guardian reported, EU negotiators will resume controversial trade talks with the US on Monday amid claims that multinational companies have jumped the gun in advance of any agreement to import goods that are currently banned, including genetically modified crops and chemically washed beef, into European markets. A campaign group says that a report in a U.S. journal concerning the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership (TTIP) talks show that Europe is already capitulating to huge pressure from the U.S. to allow imports of previously banned goods before an agreement is reached. Just one day later, the blog Common Dreams reported on a similar acceleration of the TTIP standards in advance of the agreement's approval by lawmakers in Europe and the United States, asserting that despite significant pressure among Europeans to slow or scrap the sovereignty-sapping trade pact, American negotiators are pressuring their continental counterparts to play ball or else. U.S. officials successfully used the prospect of TTIP to bully the EU into abandoning plans to ban 31 dangerous pesticides with ingredients that have been shown to cause cancer and infertility. A similar fate befell regulations around the treatment of beef with lactic acid. This was banned in Europe because of fears that the procedure was being used to conceal unhygienic practices. The ban was repealed by MEPs in the European Parliamentary Environment, Public Health and Food Safety Committee after EU Commission officials openly suggested TTIP negotiations would be threatened if the ban wasn't lifted. It's not hard to see why the US trade representatives would be anxious to get the EU diplomats back to the TTIP table. As this reporter noted in June, the vote on a crucial package of TTIP amendments was delayed after successful efforts by opponents to stall the massive surrender of sovereignty wrapped in a trade deal. A statement published that day by the UK Independent Party, UKIP, shed light on the real reason for the parliamentary pushback. Today Nigel Farage, MEP and leader of UKIP, said, "In my 17 years as an MEP I've never received so much communication from the public on a proposed piece of legislation. The TTIP has concerned millions of people across the European Union. They have bombarded their MEPs with phone calls, letters and emails, and in response to this the EU is now running scared. They've got the wind up, particularly the left, who have been supporting TTIP from the start and finally have been exposed as backing large-scale global corporatism." The Parliament suspended today not just the vote, but equally the debate on this issue, which I think was cowardly in the extreme. It is interesting to note that for the first time ever actions in the European Parliament are now being heavily debated in Washington, too. Perhaps we need a redefinition of what a free trade deal is. UK Prime Minister David Cameron's prediction that Brits will rue the day is right, though not if the TTIP is defeated, but if it is ratified. There is so much wrong with this deal, and the New American is the foremost source of information on the many crimes against the US Constitution lurking in this Leviathan. There is no doubt among constitutionalists in America and friends of liberty and economic freedom on both sides of the Atlantic that the TTIP is not to any right-thinking person's liking. In an article on June 5, the New American laid out a detailed constitutional justification for rejecting the TTIP, and their equally evil cousin, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP. The Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership (TTIP) proposes to begin deep and comprehensive integration between the 28 member states of the European Union and the United States. Over the course of the past several years, we have published many articles detailing the dangers posed by these, still officially secret, agreements. We are bringing together here, in abbreviated form, 10 of those reasons why every American, whether identifying as Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent, Tea Party, Liberal, Conservative, or Constitutionalist, should oppose both of these proposals. Of course, were this deal a good deal for the United States, the UK, or the rest of Europe, its advocates would be shouting its benefits from the rooftops. In fact, however, the agreement is being negotiated in secret, and trade representatives of the various partners act assiduously to keep the details under deep cover. That should be enough to give pause even to those predisposed to otherwise favor such globalist goings-on. If readers are not yet wary enough to join the fight against the TTIP, the fact that the cornerstone of the globalist insider regime, the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, is pushing the pact, should be just enough to get them involved in the battle for freedom. As the New American noted, the CFR fully supports the transoceanic political and economic integration and convergence plans of the TPP and TTIP. It works closely with the Transatlantic Policy Network, TPN, which says its mission is to promote and assist the convergence of EU/US government policies. The TPN's 1995 partnership project called for combining NATO with emerged EU-U.S. in a single political framework by early in the next century. In its 2008 report Completing the Transatlantic Market, the TPN went further, revealing that the process of creating a transatlantic market will be an integral step in the evolution toward an eventual transatlantic partnership agreement embracing the economic, political, and strategic totality of the EU-US relationship. Totality, did you catch that? On October 23, the 11th round of TTIP negotiations concluded in Miami, and it looks like the bullying tactics of the United States have successfully convinced EU trade ministers to cave to the American demands. The Guardian reports, the EU appears to have broken a promise to reinforce environmental protections in a leaked draft negotiating text submitted in the latest round of TTIP talks in Miami. In January, the bloc promised to safeguard green laws, defend international standards and protect the U.S. right to set high levels of environmental protection, in a haggle with the U.S. over terms for a free trade deal. But a confidential text seen by The Guardian and filed in the Sustainable Development chapter of negotiations earlier this week contains only vaguely phrased and non-binding commitments to environmental safeguards. Sustainable development. Constitutionalists and proponents of individual property rights will instantly recognize that ominous term as the goal of the United Nations scheme known as Agenda 21. The TTIP, then, seems not only an attempt to cede legislative authority to big business and move steadily and stealthily toward US-EU political integration, but it may actually be the Trojan horse within which Agenda 21 is made a law in the United States, enforced on citizens as part and parcel of this latest globalist trade agreement. In fact, in this case as in so many others, the Obama administration and its corporate shot callers may have found a way to make an end run around the Constitution, the Congress, and the will of the American people.